Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Forecast. I am your host, Matt DiNardo. Great to be with you on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon as we come close to maybe tying a record here in Central Virginia. Many of you are enjoying this warm air, this warm spell. I hope you are. I know some of you are saying, no, too much too soon. I get that. Don't worry. We do have a little bit of coolness coming our way a little bit later this week, a little cool down. And then next week, if you've been seeing some of the forecasts, we are looking at temperatures in the 40s, maybe for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe beyond for a day or two, and then we'll start to rebound. So a couple of things we'll be looking at. Let's bring up the graphics and kind of talk about it. So obviously today is still day number 2 of Severe Weather Awareness Week here in Virginia, and today was the statewide tornado drill held earlier this morning, and many schools participate in that because they want to keep students, your children, safe, and we'll be talking about what makes tornadoes develop and the different types of tornadoes in terms of the rating factor we call the enhanced Fujita scale. And what we look at on radar, we'll break it down for you to show you some of the unique aspects of supercell thunderstorms that do produce tornadoes. There is a possible major outbreak of tornadic weather today. We'll talk about that. And of course, that warm air that we started with talking about moving out. So let's just give you the big picture overall, kind of set the stage for you. Pretty quiet here across the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We're enjoying some nice warm air. You see that stationary front / warm front lifting from Chicago all the way back through St. Louis. That is going to be the triggering mechanism for some pretty nasty weather, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. And that'll stretch all the way down into Texas. And over time, that system is going to come to us and bring us the chance, us being Central Virginia, the chance of some showers and thunder showers early Thursday morning before we see cool down number 1. Let's just talk about tornadoes. And people always ask when I go to schools or I go to speak, how do tornadoes form? And you often hear us talk about something called wind shear, which is winds moving in opposite directions. So if we look at this diagram, you notice the red dots and small arrows are moving from right to left, whereas the blue ones higher up are moving from left to right. You could think of that as low-level winds and upper-level winds, and they are moving in opposite directions. So that's the representation of shear. But remember, weather doesn't just happen at the ground, it happens high aloft, and things happen in between vertically. So what we get is mixing of that shearing winds as winds bring it down and up, and we start to get some very minor rotation, and that then is kind of the beginning of what we'll notice on radar as, we might have something developing here. Then as that takes over, we get that strong tilt that lifts that twisting of the winds into the thunderstorms, and we get the full rotation, and it's first called a funnel cloud before it touches the ground, and then once it touches the ground, it is then called a tornado, or if you're from the Midwest, you've probably heard the term cyclone. There are many different names for tornado, cyclone, but again, funnel cloud is the initial stage before it touches the ground, and we're all familiar with pictures that look like that. So when we look at things on radar, pretty interesting, there's a lot going on. We look at a large area, and we can break things apart. So the north side of the supercell thunderstorm would be that area we've kind of circled in green there. That's where the heavy rain would lie. Out ahead of it, you may see kind of a cloud that's kind of rolled over. It looks like a big shelf. It's actually called a shelf cloud or a roll cloud, and it's the leading edge of some really gusty winds. Then in between where we have the rain and where the potential rotation is, that's where we're going to find the potential for hail. That's where we have our greatest lift. Some of the cold air is wrapping on in, and we do get hail. And then, of course, you see down along the base there, the mixing of the winds, the warm surface winds, the colder upper winds, the 2 arrows of orange wrapping in, the 2 blue arrows or lines wrapping around it. That would be the rotation. And if it's a well-defined twisting and we get a funnel cloud and it hits something, we might have something called a debris ball, basically where debris is being held in that storm as it's hitting and kind of keeping it circulated up in the air before the debris is too heavy and it comes down. So when you see a tornado watch, you want to have a plan. That's the number one thing. You don't need to run right then and there because remember, when we talk about a watch, it has to do with the ingredients are there for potential thunderstorms to produce tornadoes. It means, yes, we have the ingredients, but nothing is happening right now. So you don't need to shelter. You don't need to call your mom or dad or sister or brother and say, we got to get into the basement. That's not this time of thinking. This is just, hey, we're under a watch. There's some ingredients. We need to see if things bubble up, if storms form. Now, if storms form and on radar, we begin to see rotation, again, the mixing of the winds, then we issue a tornado warning. I say we, it's the National Weather Service that issues the tornado warning. And it's issued for maybe a half hour or up to an hour. It's for a small section of a county or a couple of counties. That's when you need to take action. You need to find that safe place in your house. It is not the second level. We'll go over that in just a second. At that point, the time to plan is over. It's the time to do. It's the time to go into action. And you should closely monitor weather information. And you could do that by streaming us live on your phone because anytime there's severe weather happening, including tornadoes, we're going to be broadcasting live for you to keep you in the know, to tell you when it's safe to come out of your tornado-safe spot. So, things that are unsafe. Mobile and manufactured homes. Their walls are weaker, their spacing is further apart, they're more susceptible to wind damage. Large open rooms. Any large open room that has glass, windows, not a good place. Vehicles underneath an overpass. This was an old thing we used to tell people to do. Park under the overpass and you'll be safe there. The problem is the overpass actually funnels winds faster, and that could be a big deal. So you want to find another option. More safe. So that puts us in an interior room of a well-constructed home or building and stay in place. Most safe would be a basement. Look, but not everybody has a basement, and very few in Central Virginia have a tornado shelter or a storm shelter. You'll find those mostly in the Midwest and the Plains. You've seen it like in the movie Twister, where they open up the hatch doors, they run down, they close the hatch doors, and it's like a big bunker underneath the earth. That's a super safe place. Okay, so let's talk about in a home, right? Basement number one, left-hand side, good to go. If not, it might be, and we've kind of drawn a cross-section here on the right-hand side of your screen, of the lowest interior room in your first floor, your lowest floor. And you see, in this case, it happens to be a bathroom, right? It's surrounded by walls, so there's lots of studs in those walls to protect you, and it's really tightly confined. Yeah, it'll be tight, but you know what? That construction is going to save your life in the event that your home is hit by a tornado. The other rooms have exterior walls. They might have windows, glass can fly, things like that. So again, interior room, small, and that small room could be a closet as well. In my home, it happens to be a closet. I mean, that's where I've told my wife and daughter when she was living at home, that's where you go, right? Secondary would be a bathroom, but it has an adjacent wall, but there's some better structure there too. But again, it's first going to be that closet. Throw the clothes out and get right in there. Okay, so I mentioned at the top of the show, we rate tornadoes, and we have a scale. Many of you, of course, know very well we talk about hurricanes on a scale of 1 to 5 called the Saffir-Simpson scale. Well, in the world of tornadoes, there is a scale, and at one time it was just called the Fujita scale. Back in the late 90s, it was upgraded to the enhanced Fujita scale, and it has to do with the type of damage, and therefore we can reverse calculate the wind speeds. Now, we can get a good idea of the approximate wind speeds when we look at Doppler radar, Viper radar, right? And we look at the outbound winds and the inbound winds, and we talk about this all the time. We say the gate to gate is about 120 miles per hour, but that's high in the sky. What does that translate to down to the ground? And that has to do with the damage. So when you look on the right-hand side, let's look at the EF1. You find some windows broken, doors damaged, mobile homes are often overturned. You get down to EF3, 136 to 165. entire stories of homes are destroyed, significant damage to large buildings. When you get to the 4 and 5, these are really dangerous storms. Well-constructed homes, ones made of concrete or brick, are often completely destroyed. Or if you're at EF5, usually you'll find there's nothing left but a foundation in some of those homes. So really, really strong stuff. All right, I mentioned in the top of the show, there is the potential for some severe weather today and tonight. Two areas. One is around Chicago and northern Illinois. Another one is down throughout a good portion of Texas. The Chicago is going to be mainly late this afternoon to early evening and the early part of tonight. The Texas stuff will be later tonight, our time. So I want to focus in on the Chicago because this, as we talked about, is going to be a major outbreak of severe weather from Peoria to just southeast of Davenport, back over to Chicago, north of Lafayette, north of Champaign, Illinois, and just outside of South Bend. And when we're looking at the different types, and by the way, we go down into Texas, that is a very likely area to see severe weather. So again, the main focus is going to be up around Chicago, where some areas could see as much as, I mean, that's an incredible number, folks. That red is 15%. 15% of the storms today could produce tornadoes. That is a huge amount. Now, we can't tell you if it's EF0, EF1, EF3, EF5 that we just talked about, but what we can tell you is the ingredients are there. There's a lot of shear in the atmosphere to produce some very strong storms. So that's what we look at there when we mention those numbers, right? And that's the color coding. There's also the potential for some dangerous winds at 58 miles per hour or stronger. That's for a large portion of the area. And again, there is the chance for hail. 30% of the storms today could produce 1 inch in diameter hail or bigger. Again, that's what we call severe hail. And we talked about severe weather yesterday. Now, questions, of course, come up for tomorrow. Will we see severe weather here? Because that front that we talked about is slowly coming our way. And you notice the yellow, the low risk of severe weather, goes from the north side of Virginia all the way up through Delaware, D.C., West Virginia, eastern Pennsylvania, most of Pennsylvania, in fact, most of West Virginia. But what's going to happen is this is going to slowly progress to the east. So by the time the front gets to us being, again, central Virginia, it's going to happen early Thursday morning. So really do not see the risk of severe weather for central Virginia and points east being that great. Typically, when we talk about severe weather here, we mentioned this yesterday, it's 2 p.m. to about 10 p.m. is kind of our climatological time when we see most of our severe weather. We do not see a lot of severe weather happening between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. That's the time that this front is going to pass. We're typically cooler. Yes, we can still have some shearing. We don't have the heating of the sun to really invigorate the storms, the solar heating, that's what we call that. So, yes, we can get it, but it's usually a lot less. I've been here 22 years, right? April of 2004 I started. I think I can count on one hand, and it might be 2 times that we actually had morning severe weather. One was Hurricane Isaias. Brought some tornadoes along our Chesapeake Bay locations. And another time, I would say, was about 15 years ago, we had a line of storms in the middle of July coming through at 7 in the morning that popped a couple of tornado warnings. So that's really about it. It is a very rare occurrence. I'm not saying it can happen, but percentages don't work in this favor. And this is not a great setup, again, being in mid-March. We get severe weather in March, don't get me wrong, but if I'm looking for potential early morning severe weather, I want it to be a little bit more in June, July for that, warmth and that heating and all that humidity. Okay, the other thing we've been talking about has to do with the record highs. And today we have a chance at tying the record high for the day, which is 82, set down back in 2006. And I think we have a real good shot. I'm sorry, is today 80? We'll see in a second. I think it's 82, 2006, because I'm getting confused. And then today's 81 in 2006. Tomorrow's 82 in 1990. And there's still a chance at record warmth before that front comes through early Thursday. So, but that's the last of the warm spell, and you'll see what I'm talking about with that 8-day forecast. So, record heat possible again tomorrow. Record warmth. Let's not say heat. Heat to me is like 95 or better, and I think many of you'd say that. All right, so yeah, so the record today, is for tomorrow was 82 in 1990. Today is 81 in 2006. So I think we have a chance at tying both. And then you see we're well under that. No chance at hitting the records. All right, let's bring up the 8-day forecast. So a cool down coming. So we have that front coming through early Thursday morning. Some showers, maybe a thunderstorm, some late day sun. It's going to turn windy. Early highs will be around 60 at about 7, 8 in the morning, and then temperatures will slowly fall throughout the day. And by Friday morning, we'll be back down to 34. Friday, kind of a cooler day with a high of 59. Saturday, Sunday, you're looking at 65, then 72. So a nice rebound. Another front coming through later Monday morning will bring us some rain, and it will turn windy. Highs early in the day will be around 60. And then Tuesday, we're looking at a high of 46 for St. Patrick's Day with partly sunny skies. And then that cool air is going to hang around probably for the rest of next week, that being Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But we might see some moderation for next Saturday and Sunday if all indications are correct. You see the warm air back to the west. That's going to slowly push its way to us. So a lot going on in weather, as I just mentioned. Obviously, the big story is the potential for severe weather back over Chicagoland area, and we'll be watching that carefully. Of course, that'll be a big national news story. And of course, for us, it's the record heat today and tomorrow before changes come our way. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Beyond the Forecast. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can always drop them in the comments. If you have something you'd like us to talk about, drop them there as well. Or shoot me an email at mdinardo@wric.com. Hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.